Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about how to factor this trinomial. I am going to do this in two different ways. I'm going to do the grouping method first, and then I will do the box or tic-tac-toe method second. It doesn't matter which method you choose, just make sure you have your work supporting it. Now, as we get started, the first thing we need to do is start organizing the information we have. We do this by pulling out what we refer to as A, B, and C. These are coefficients. These are strictly numbers. So A is the number in front of our squared term. So in this case, A would be 2. B is the number in front of our first power. So this would be 3. And C is our constant term. It's that number at the very end, or in this case, -9. The one thing to be careful of, sometimes A will be 1. If you don't see a number there, you need to know that, oh, I put 1 for A. The last thing that we're going to write down is we're going to write down what happens when we take A times C. In this case, when I take 2 times -9, I get -18. Once I have this information, I can start working to break down this middle term. So what I am going to do is, using a factor chart or just knowing, I am going to write down the factors of 18. And what I'm looking for is, of these factors, when I add these numbers together, I want to get my B value. So when I add the factors of -18 together, I'm looking for a pair of numbers that gives me 3. Now what I'm doing here is I'm only writing out the positive numbers. You need to play around or guess and check, or just know, using positive and negative numbers, how can I combine one of these 3 pairs of factors to get 3. Now, worst case scenario, you're guessing and checking. Now, I will tell you, 1 and 18 is not going to work. 2 and 9 is not going to work. The numbers that multiply to -18 and add to 3 are going to be +6 and -3. And as I do this, I'm taking whatever label this is, in this case, this N, and I'm just writing it right here. Now, for both methods, we need to be doing this setup, and then how we deal with the last part of this is where the two different methods change. So for the first method, the grouping method, what I would do first is I'm going to rewrite this problem. I have 2n squared, I have my 6n, I have my -3n, and -9. And what we're doing is we are breaking down this 3n term, and we're saying, hey, we did all of this work. It breaks down into 6 and -3. And so I'm rewriting my polynomial that way. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to find the GCF of the first 2 pieces and the last 2 pieces. So to start, I'm going to find the GCF of 2n squared plus 6n. The number they have in common is 2, and they each have an n. What is left over is n plus 3. Okay, then for my blue piece, I have -3n minus 9. The GCF here is -3. It's negative because the first thing I see is negative. And what is left over? Well, when I factor out -3 from -3n, I'm left with a +1. And when I factor out a -3 from a -9, I am left with a +3. Now, when you do this, what you are going to notice and what should happen is you are going to have 2 things that are the same. In this case, n plus 3. One of my factor terms is going to be n plus 3. My other factor is going to be what's on the outside of those parentheses, the GCFs that I just found. In this case, the 2n minus 3. And this is my answer using the grouping method for factoring that trinomial. Now, for the tic-tac-toe method, it is going to be mostly the same. I set it up, I get, the 6n and the negative 3n, and instead of writing it out, we're going to do the box method backwards. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to write in this polynomial. I'm really going to take this and put this down here. My first term is 2n squared. Then it doesn't matter which goes where, but you put in the 6n and the negative 3n, and then the negative 9 goes last. And then either going left to right or top to bottom, I'm going to find the GCF of my 2 rows and my 2 columns. For my first row, the GCF of 2n squared plus 6n is going to be 2n. The GCF of negative 3n and negative 9 is negative 3. The GCF of 2n squared and negative 3n is n, or 1n. And finally, the GCF of 6n minus minus 9 is positive 3. Now, if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, more or less, we're finding the same things or the same GCF of what we did earlier. My answer is again going to be n plus 3 times 2n minus 3. The order of those parentheses don't matter. The signs really matter. But here's how you would factor a trinomial using either the grouping or box method. As you are practicing this, please reach out if you have any questions. This looks like it's complicated in that there's a lot of steps. This is a one-size-fit-all method for all of the problems we're doing in this unit. So if you can do this, your entire test is, can you do this method? Reach out if you have questions, but that is how you solve this problem.